Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have me a very special guest, Jason Clark. Jason, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am great. I feel like I'm warmed up now since I had a podcast earlier with Lewis Carter and Emily Inkpen of the Burnout podcast. It's like I was saying, it's like a really cool cyberpunk sci-fi. So everybody check that out. But yeah, it was like right after work, and I was like really trying. It took me a while to get warmed up. But now, before I had you, I got dinner, got to rest, got to shower, change. So I feel refreshed and ready to go and talk about some writing. So I'm really excited to have you on. I saw your post on Instagram actually. So Instagram's working for you. I just want you to know that. And I was like, who is Jason Clark and why don't I know them? And that's where I was like, oh my gosh. So I checked out your books right away and everything. And I was like, I said to my wife, she's like, I assume you know everybody at this point. Cause I'm like looking under bridges, I'm out in the forest, like yelling, like I find podcasts, like I have like list after list after list. So I just want to point out to people, I am always looking, I'm always telling people, like, send me referrals, like, send me whoever you got, right? Whether it's books, creative stuff, comics, whatever, games, all sorts of stuff. And if I don't know somebody, I feel like the algorithm, you know what I mean? Like, it's happened me a lot lately where I'm like, there's so many great people out there and I'm on everything. So to me, it just shows, right, that the algorithm is really difficult, to kind of get through at times, especially with so much out there. And I'm like actively searching, right? So I can only imagine, when you're trying to kind of, just find your audience, right? I've talked to quite a few people on here who've had 7, 8, 9, 10 books out and are still trying. And I'm like, I get it. This is my fourth year. In the summer, like next month, I'll be starting my fifth season, my fifth year, and it's like it's wild to still be having those kind of talks with people like, oh, I just discovered you. I'm like, sweet. Hopefully the algorithm's starting to work. But I want you to know Instagram's working for you because that's where I found you. So, but yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you about your writing and your books today. Everything looks and sounds awesome. So I can't wait. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to know that the algorithm's working. I didn't think it was, so
I like to
I
tell people, like, I had somebody, like 2 days ago, I forget. Oh, Maurice Efforts the third, and he's got Cello Skate, so I got that interview that's gonna come up soon. But I said I found him on Instagram. Instagram's like popping off again for me all of a sudden. I'm finding all these great authors and creatives, and it's really nice. It's weird to see how how it fluctuates and Facebook too and stuff. But I always like to let people know like where I found them because to me it's nice to know that something's working because if you know that, maybe you'll plug a few more things in Instagram and, maybe get more people. Like, who knows? But I always think it's good info. Well, we're going to start
yeah.
off with that first question there, Jason. What has your writing journey been like up until this point?
It's been a long road. I started writing like in elementary school, I would say. I really enjoyed writing. Around high school, I started feeling like maybe I have a knack for this. I tried writing a novel here and there along the way, but you lose confidence as you try to get published, especially around that time. Like there may have been some like self-publishing options, but not a lot. And
Yeah.
so I just went the traditional route and tried to get into it that way. Didn't have like a professional editor or anything, just tried to throw my stuff out there. So I did get discouraged for a long time and then revisited the whole writing thing years later, probably like a decade between, honestly. And then it was a long journey just to get the training grounds out from the time I wrote the first draft to the time I wrote the final one. So yeah, to answer that, it's been a long, bumpy, difficult road journey.
I've talked to quite a few people who have mentioned that. I had that, especially with grad school and stuff like that. Where it was just like that's how it's been for the last month. My brain's been fried, so I can't finish my novella or start anything new. I just need a break till next week till everything's kind of done. But I'm curious for you. Like I've known quite a few people that have kind of said that, like in terms of like 8, 10 years, and then I went back. That for me, that was like around the time frame where I was like, oh, I'm gonna go back and be serious about this. But I'm just curious, like, what was it where you were like, I got to do this thing? Like, what was it that you're like, after 10 years, about right? Like, I have to go back and start this again.
It's actually my brother. So my brother Pete, he came to me at one point, probably like when I was like 25 or something, and he's like, "Hey, I have this idea for a book. Would you want to write it with me?" Because he doesn't. he's not a writer really, but he is like great with coming up with ideas. He does write still, but he has a lot of good ideas, and so I was like, okay, we could try it together, maybe be like a Wachowski type thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so we tried to tag team it, and that's what really got me back into it. And that was a whole that's where the training grounds really came from. So I had written something in high school. It was like a sci-fi thing, and it was awful, obviously. And then he had this idea to do something more like a medieval type school, kind of like I always hate comparing it to Harry Potter because it's really not like Harry Potter, but you can't escape the comparison anytime you have like a school
Yeah,
trope, right?
yeah.
So medieval times type of setting with more older like teenagers going to school for like a training academy. Like this was the basic premise of it. He wanted a lot more like fantasy elements in it, dragons and stuff like that. The training grounds doesn't have that. But that was the first time that I got back into it. I was like, okay, let's like really give this a try. And so I wrote the first draft of it. And there was a lot of complications trying to do that with somebody, obviously, but that's what got me back into it.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm looking at my brother Jared. Like, if you want to write a book, like, let me know. He watched the first three podcast episodes. Like, this is awesome. He goes, I can't do it anymore. I'm like, I get it. It's not his thing. He's a finance guru. Like, he loves doing that kind of book stuff. I'm a fantasy and sci-fi guy. But that's really
Maybe
awesome. I'm
console with
jealous
you
that you
on like
guys
the
got to.
accountant type book.
Yeah, yeah. I told him I was like, I know people, He's like, he's thinking about it. So, yeah, like his way he would do things. But that's really cool. I'm really jealous. We actually were just talking, Emily Lewis and I earlier about, like I'm actually hoping to after publishing my first three prequel novellas, like really like this year and next year, and then my first like urban fantasy like book one. I'm actually hoping that I feel good enough by then and have enough things out there that and started. I'm hoping that I can get a co-author because I have met so many co-authors and I had Marisa Wolf, Casey Azell, and then Melissa Olthoff. Like I mean, she's got like Chris Cat. Everybody has so many co-authors now. It's like wild, and I'm like, no wonder people can get this books. Like, look at was it like Jay and Cheney? Like, he's got a book out like every third day. I think he's got like 10 co-authors. So I don't know. I just want to try it because they were talking about earlier about just like the different things you learn from people. So I don't know. I think that's really interesting. Was there something in particular? You said like the dragons and a couple things, like fantasy wise, tropes and things like that were in there. But was there anything, that like when you got back into it with your brother that, like you added because of him? Like, like were there things that you learned from him that, you kind of took with you?
Well, so the first draft, like a lot of the background story for the characters and stuff he had come up with, uh, I really deviated from that draft. So like I had done the first draft, we talked about it, and then he tried to do a draft on his own because he was like, hey, this is terrible, and I was like, okay, why don't you give it a whirl? And so then I tried to do another one after he. So we actually did this a few times and
Okay.
it definitely got to the point where I was like, I can't do it again. I can't deal with this story one more time. So I walked away from it for probably about a decade. And then I kept thinking about my story that I written in high school. And again, that was like pretty much like a sci-fi war book. And that's where I was like, I wonder, like, I just had this idea to kind of combine the two. Cause it just, he wanted something more for like 12-year-old, 13-year-olds.
Gotcha.
Very, very similar to like Harry Potter audience.
Yeah.
I'm just not that kind of a person writer. Like I don't
No,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like things that are a little bit more adult or way more adult. So that's where I was like, I'm gonna try to combine these two and see if I can make some kind of a weird fusion. Not that it's never been done before, fantasy sci-fi, obviously, but in the way that I was trying to do it, I feel like is still a little bit unique. So that's what brought me back to it after that long period of time. And so yes, there's a lot of carryover from what he and I worked on together, but it really moves way away from like what we had initially talked about. It's more sci-fi than it is fantasy. Like even so there's elemental magic in it. Even that like is supposed to be grounded in like pseudoscience, I guess. Like I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
try to have a lot of rules built around everything that remain consistent.
That's cool. It's so funny that you mentioned that. Like, I literally just talked to Maurice about this yesterday. Because Skate is like Star Wars, like I would say, or like Firefly, but like it's a sci-fi fantasy. But we were talking about that like resurgence, like all of a sudden, which has been really cool the last, I'd say like 3 years or so. Is I love Star Wars, I love sci-fi fantasies, so I'm like I'm here for it. So I don't know, kind of seeing this like sci-fi fantasy renaissance is just I don't know, it's just awesome. So it's nice to see people really expand in terms of the genre, and I've seen quite a few people do very like you said very different things. And I think a lot of people, when you say sci-fi fantasy, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I can't be Star Wars, so I'm not going to write in the genre, right? And that doesn't work for anybody, right? Because we don't get as good a stories. So it's so nice to see, so more and more I see people writing back into this subgenre or genre. And I don't know, I like it because I love Star Wars and I love sci-fi, I love fantasy separate. I think anytime you like Warhammer 40K, I'm here for it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I was told at one point. So I used to work in a call center, and I was told by my manager at the time because I would complain about Harry Potter all the time. And to be clear, like I like Harry Potter, but I would complain about aspects of it, and he's like, because I'd be like, this thing doesn't make sense, or like, why? I
Oh
get
yeah.
that it's cute that the stairs are shifting, but why? And he's like, you don't like fantasy, and I was like, I do, I think, I don't know. I was like, I just want some explanations, and he's like, nah, you don't like fantasy if you want explanations. So and I would complain about Lord of the Rings for some of the same type of things. Like,
I get that.
yeah, I was like, I still, to this day, I get it. Well, no, I don't get it. There's an eyeball that wants a ring. Like, I don't know. I never really fully understood what was going on there. Um,
It's
but
not
yeah.
really explained.
Yeah, I was like, can I get some kind of an explanation on what he wants to do with this ring exactly? Like, I don't know. So that just stuff like that, he'd be like, you don't actually like fantasy. I was like, no, I do. I want a little bit more rigor. And so maybe I don't, I guess, because I went about it trying to write a fantasy and just couldn't bring myself to do it. So maybe he was right.
I don't know. I always find it interesting. Like, first of all, I think that's like totally off base. I mean, I there are so many things. Like, I love fantasy. I'm about 60% way, and I love lit RPG, but like I like specific tones of it. Like Dungeon Crawler Carl is a good story to me, but no, I don't want to offend anybody, but it's not my end all be all. Like for me, like I had interviewed James Logan, like the Silver Blood Promise Chef's Kiss, like amazing fantasy. But even that like had, and then like the Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlin, like but like totally different tones. And then the Lost War, Justin Lee Anderson. Those are like my three top fantasies of the year, last year and this year. But like I don't know, like those were very different than Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. And I get it. There's like so many times where I'm like, why did she bring this up? And then like Steven Erickson's fantasy, right? Like deep fantasy, epic fantasy, and he'll anything he brings up like in particular and talks about like it always comes up in some way later. And like I don't know, J.K. Rowling to me, like she'll talk about things and I'm like, wait, I thought this was actually going to be a thread. And it almost seems like she forgot about it. And people just like the books, and I liked Harry Potter a lot, but I don't know, I don't think it's like the end all be all to determine if you like fantasy or not. So I think that's like an interesting measurement. But
Yeah, and here's the other funny thing. Actually, he was like, he's like, well, if you think you can do it better, then do it. I go, okay. And to be clear, I didn't think I could do it better, but I was challenged. So I was like, oh, maybe I will write a book. And he still hasn't read it. So
all right. We're just gonna put that to the wayside then. That's really funny.
yeah, I was like, yeah, you
Uh,
told me to write it. I wrote it.
yeah,
When are you gonna read it?
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's super cool. It's so funny. I had a student a while back that like I worked at a school with them, and like I was teaching them, and like this was like almost 10 years ago now, and the English teacher, one of them I worked with, they said that this kid would never. You're never gonna be an author. You're never gonna be a writer. And then they did it. They like wrote a book and it was fiction. And they're like, "Yeah, I did this." I was like, "I told you could do it." I said, "I don't know why you listen to that person." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, us, the rest of us, me telling you you can do this thing if you want. I'll help you." And then I guess that was the chip on their shoulder they needed. But it was like really interesting. It's funny that you bring up the Lord of the Rings because I love Lord of the Rings. I haven't read The Return of the King yet. I'm really trying this summer to get it done. Hobbit's like one of my favorite books of all time, but like it drives me nuts that like literally like the like and like Brandon Sanderson talks about it in his BYU lectures, right? Like why is it that Gandalf can destroy a Balrog, but then can't do anything later? Like the inconsistencies just drive me nuts. And he's like a demigod, right? So it's like to me, there's like this huge inconsistency, and it just like it really hurt the story for me. I like the Two Towers more than the Fellowship, personally, in terms of books, but I don't know. I totally get it. I get why when people are like I don't like it. My best friend hates Lord of the Rings, hates Tolkien, you know, loves a bunch of other stuff. I'm like, no, I totally get it. I think the movies actually helped me out after I read The Hobbit because I felt like it added a lot of different things, and I don't know. Yeah, I totally get it. It really drove me nuts. I was like, they could have just like flown the Eagles. Like, let's just be honest. Like, I the whole thing was ruined for me after that. But I think that's
And
interesting.
the ghosts were such an easy button.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, like oh yeah, even in the movie, like that drove me nuts. Where it's like you use the same, like the Two Towers. I like how Brandon talks about. It. He's like it was so epic, right? Where look for me on the third day or whatever, and then it happens. But then yeah, to use the same thing or Return of the King to me in the movie like felt cheap. Yeah, it was like just an easy way to get the characters out. So yeah, I totally agree with that. It's really interesting. Well, we talked a little bit about genre, and but do you want to talk about anything else in terms of genre? Like I mean, you mentioned sci-fi, fantasy quite a bit. Do you write in any other genres, or think about writing any other genres?
yeah, so I just released another book recently. I don't know. It's a thriller.
Oh,
So
cool.
thriller is actually what I like the best. And when I first wrote The Training Grounds, I tried to write it similar to a thriller, like really fast paced.
Yeah.
And it was not even half the size of what it ended up being now, the first book. And my editor, when I sent it to her, she's like, "You didn't do any world building." I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to get this thing moving." And she's like, "You can't with a fantasy." And I was like, "Okay." So then I had to peel it back and rewrite it. And like, I added way too much then. And she's like, "Hey, even for a fantasy, this is way too long." So then I cut it in half from there. So I went
Mm.
from like, let's say it was like 80,000 words, maybe the first draft, to I think it was 260,000 words, and
Oh
then
wow.
it landed close to like 200,000 words. So yeah, I was all over the place, but I think ended up in a pretty happy place. But yeah, I guess I brought it here just in case I need to show it. But I wrote this one
Oh, that's
and
cool.
released it recently. This is it's about the I don't know if you ever heard of like they say there's a curse that was put on the presidents of the United States, and
Yeah, yeah,
every
yeah.
20 years.
Yep.
So it's about that, and it takes place in 2063. So like 100 years, roughly 100 years from JFK's assassination. And so there's this like kind of 20-year cycle that lasted for a long time up until Reagan, and then there's this 100-year cycle from. I mean, I don't need to call it a cycle; it happened twice. Lincoln to JFK, and then this one's about okay, what if this were a curse and it's going to happen again in 2063? How do we recognize it, and who's going to try to stop it? So it's a thriller about that. And then I'm working on a trilogy right now. I should release the first book for that probably in the next month or two. It's a battle royale, so I don't know if you're a gamer at all.
Oh yeah.
So Fortnite, PUBG. I just recently listened to Battle Royale. I listen to and read books. I know sometimes people don't love that, but don't count it as reading, but I do. So I listened to Battle Royale. Have you ever read that one?
No, 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 not yet.
So it's the if you're familiar with it, I don't know. It's the Japanese book. It came out in like I should know the author's name, but I don't. Um, I think it came out in like 1999. So this is the book that a lot of people said Suzanne Collins. They were like, "Oh, this is like Battle Royale, The
Oh
Hunger
yeah.
Games," and they
Yeah,
said that
yeah,
she
yeah.
ripped it off. And she's like, "I never even heard of that book." So anyway, I love those types of video games, PUBG and Fortnite. And I was like, I'm gonna write a book that's really more inspired by these than it would be like Hunger Games. And I thought everybody's gonna say it's a rip off of Hunger Games, but then I thought she can't own Battle Royale. I'm gonna do it.
That's
So I have a trilogy that I'm doing that again it's like a little bit just it's not really too dystopian. It doesn't focus so much on that because I feel like hers focused a lot on the socioeconomic world and
yeah, yeah,
that should have
totally.
built. I don't care so much about that. Like I want more of the action, and so this one's really focused on the arena and the battle, and the relationships built within there. So not totally different, but there's no like love triangle. Like I don't get into that really.
Oh, that's cool. I really like the life triangle, so I'm here for it. Give me some more battles and stuff, the fun stuff. I think that makes total sense. But that's cool. I teach history, so I love stuff like that. My brother and I like it's just horrible. Like now, there's like my son's got 3 kids, so we're just like in between dadding. We're like, hey, have you heard this conspiracy? Like we used to watch like ancient aliens together, like all sorts of stuff. We love the what ifs, and I don't know. Like we've always loved mysteries and stuff, especially historical ones. So, yeah, anything like that, like it's just like totally up our alley. So that's really
You might
cool.
like 2063 then. Like it was fun to take like real history
Yeah, yeah,
and then like build conspiracies off of those to try to like work my way around like, well, clearly if this curse was real, it ended with Reagan. How do you get around that? And so like I had to come up with a lot of conspiracies that I created around that and then Bush. There was a lot of surprising facts that like I stumbled across too that like I also love history. And so just going through that, I was like, I'm surprised I don't know some of this stuff. And I'm
yeah,
surprised it's
man.
not talked about more.
It sounds like your book 263 to me sounds really really cool. So I didn't know that actually. So Goodreads did me wrong. So I'm gonna have to find that now after we get done and check that out. So definitely adding that to the TBR. Kind of trying to do more thrillers because like you, I'm always like I don't know. I'm really into like the Jack Reacher and I don't know some of the like the Terminal Lists and stuff. I don't know. I love thrillers, so I always have. So I'd like to I don't know kind of try my hand at some point. You never know. Maybe I'll make my fantasy and sci-fi stuff a little better by learning something new. But I don't know. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, well, thank you. 2063 in some ways was a lot easier to write. Just because I'm used to that kind of pace. Like my favorite book of all time is The Postman Always Rings Twice,
Oh,
and it's just my favorite. I love the pacing. I love the time period. I just love everything about it. And so like yeah, I love history. I love thrillers. So for me, this was like just a very natural thing to write. The complicated part was trying to like make everything logical when it's not really going to be, and
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like in some cases, like, well, we're talking about a curse here. Like, is it real? Is it not? I don't know. There's a lot of things that made it difficult, but the fantasy for me was also very, very challenging. The one I'm writing now is the easiest one. Like, I wrote it so much easier.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I totally get that. I actually am publishing urban fantasy first because I love urban fantasy, but like it's harder for me to write, and I'm kind of like I don't know, like Will White's Credo, like Lyndon. He has like this wheel technique he uses to try and like kind of like make it harder for himself now to get better later. That makes sense. So I don't know. Maybe it's the martial artist in me. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Now I'm like, that was so stupid. But I learned a lot. I have a lot of fantasy stuff. I was like, yeah, if I can get better and level up, right, and something that I'm a little bit, that's a little bit harder for me, but that I love, maybe it'll make everything else easier. It has made writing fantasy, I think, for me, like a whole lot easier. And it's always been like pretty good strength of mine. Sci-fi is where I'm like weak. I'm like trying to definitely get better at it, but I love sci-fi as a genre, so maybe one of these days I get a little bit better. But I get that.
Do you say you're doing novellas?
Yeah, I got three prequel novellas. The character just kept talking to me. He's like, "Yeah, this is the story." I'm like, "Why don't we start with book one?" He's like, "No, we're gonna start out." He was like, "It's like when you meet somebody for the first time, right? Like, talked to him a little bit and stuff, but he just kept telling me this story about how he became a monster hunter, and he's an ex-marine." So I went with that, but I know nothing about guns. Like, I'm a martial artist. I do old school weaponry, archery all day, but not guns. Like my dad's a hunter and stuff. Not like I don't know, but like I don't know anything about assault weapons or anything like that or military tactics. So I've had to like learn a lot and get a lot of help. So that's what's taking me so long. But it's definitely made me a better writer. And author, but I can't wait to be done with novella one and just get to the fun urban fantasy stuff because I've combined a lot of history stuff and mythology, and I actually created like my own. So like I have, I guess I can't say because my book's not out yet, but yeah, people like it. Yeah, I twist things around quite a bit and make you think like, what if this is true? My friend read some stuff. He's like, damn, I like couldn't sleep last night. So I hope to do that for everybody and keep everybody awake, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have a hard enough time sleeping. I don't know. I'll read them in the morning.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I don't blame you there. I don't blame you. Well, in terms of that third question, though, what are your training grounds books about? And we talked about how you came up with this idea a little bit, but can you tell us kind of like the meat and bones, like really like what the books themselves are about?
Yeah, so it's a group of it really focuses on one character named Darius, and it's about he's a poor farm boy, really has nothing, and he gets invited to this prestigious school, the training grounds, where they train in combat of all kinds, swordplay, horseback, and different trades as well. But then of course like the elemental magic piece, which like only a very few, not everybody, a very few number of people are like really gifted in that area. And so when he gets invited, he's very confused about why that would happen. And so it's about him going there, getting to know other people there, and become like forming a group of friends. And then there's a dean there named Dean Anders, and I would say he was actually, when I first wrote it, he was the main character. I wrote it through his perspective actually, and it was really like his perspective on Darius and how Darius has grown, and like that was the intention. But he's not. I've been told he's not a likable character, and people intentionally so to some degree. But I think people disliked him more than I intended. So I had to tone him back, tone him down a little bit, reel him in. But anyway, the way that it ended up being is like, so he's definitely a very morally gray character. And it's about Darius going there, growing. Obviously, it's a kind of a coming of age type of story, but also he's unraveling the mysteries of his world and what has happened before him. He doesn't know a lot about his father, so there's a lot of mystery there that he has to sort through. And then yeah, there's some bad guys that end up coming up, and so I don't know. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Uh, it's so interesting that you say that. But I just consider you're just too good of a writer, Jason. Like you made that character, like you just did too good of a job. Like that's fine. Like it's okay. Like I've been there. I have one character. They're like, this person is so annoying. They're like the worst of the Luke Skywalker from A New Hope. I was like, good. I want them to be really annoying. They're like, no, they're like annoying though. Like I want to stop reading the book. I go, I don't want you to stop reading the book. So I totally feel you there. I'm just curious, like, I get they're going to a school and everything, but Training Grounds is just such a cool, like name. Like, how did that kind of come about?
That's funny. No one's ever asked me that actually. So, do you ever play the game Heroes of Might and Magic?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So when you train Heroes of Might and Magic 3, when you train the paladins or whatever, when you click into the thing, it's called the Training Grounds.
I didn't even think about that.
So I know it's like more associated with like horses, but I just thought that was a cool idea. So I
Yeah,
know when my brother and I were kind of kicking around titles, we weren't getting one that we really loved, and I had been playing Heroes of Might and Magic, and then I was like, what about the Training Grounds?
it's awesome. Ah, taking me back there. What a great game.
That's a game I can never. That's one where I'm like, unless I'm ready to devote 10 hours without realizing and thinking it's been a half hour, I can't
Yeah,
play that game.
yeah. No, I totally get that. I can't remember if my friend like I can't remember like what system he lent it to me on, but like it was like a while back, and I was just like, luckily it was before I had my son, like before he was born. But yeah, like there are a couple now. My wife, she's like, "Oh, do you want this game?" I was like, "I have to finish writing this novella." I was like, "I won't get anything done." Like Oblivion remastered, I was like, I won't get anything done." I'm like, "Nothing will get done around the house." I was like, "You'll be unhappy. Our son will be unhappy," and I was like, "I won't get anything written." So I was like, "I'm gonna have to wait at least a little bit."
Yeah.
Probably to like the winter, I think, should be okay by then. There's not a lot to do, places to go and stuff. But yeah, like that was like some of my favorite gaming right there. So that
Oh
definitely
yeah.
takes me back. That's funny. Well, I think that's a great name personally. I think that's really cool. What types
Thank
of
you.
characters and tropes can readers expect in the training grounds?
Yeah. So Darius, he's a pretty much like a wholesome type of character. He has a lot of anger issues though, so I didn't want him to be like a straightforward, like I guess going back to like Luke Skywalker, I think is like a purely, and this is where, by the way, like my brother and I really disagreed. He wanted a good is good, evil's evil, um, triumphing over evil, like very clear and cut type of story, hero's journey, and there are elements of that in it. But even with Darius, who is kind of the anchor of like good in the story in a lot of ways. Even him, I wanted him to have some like pretty serious flaws that you're wondering, is he going to overcome these or not, and what are the consequences going to be if he doesn't. So that's one. Again, going back to like the morally gray, there's a lot of morally gray characters in it, uh, who are the most powerful characters, at least for a time. And so I know that that's nothing totally unique to have morally great characters, but I did want to do it in a way. I always like the idea of, can you get people to like it? How far can you push it and still get people to like kind of root for them?
Yeah,
I think Thanos is a good example of that,
yeah,
where it's like you kind of understand his motives. Would you? And I think a lot of people would probably do what he tried to do. So I tried to get some of that in there, where I wanted there to be some debate about well, I understand their motivation. Maybe I agree with it, maybe I don't, but at the very least, I understand it. Because one of the things I hate the most is like when you read a story or watch a movie and you're going through a story and you're like, I don't really get like they're doing this for the sake of being evil, I guess. Like that can be interesting. Like I think Carnage is a good example of that.
Oh
Like
yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
insane. He's just insane, and sometimes that's fun. And there are characters like that too. But I don't think you could write a story off of that. So anyway, that those are some of the tropes.
That's cool. Yeah, I always call it the Sam Raimi like villain effect, right? Where like Doc Ock, like in Spider-Man 2, right, was like Tobey Maguire like was doing something for a reason, right? I totally get why Mr. Freeze, right, like is trying to get enough money to be able to figure out how to, you know, basically like unfreeze his wife, right, and like save her life. I don't know, like those kind of things to me make a lot more sense, I think, and are just more interesting. Not that you have to, right, like there's still villains, right? Like, so you don't have to necessarily root for them, but making you think a little bit, like the root cause and things, I think just ends up having better themes. Uh, season 3 of Vox Machina. I just was watching, like, I think it's like episode 4 or whatever. There's like a villain where they go and like I don't want to spoil for anybody, but like they go to a place, one of the crews, and they have to get like an item. And I was so surprised. I just thought this villain was just going to be a villain, and it just shows you the great writing. Like they actually gave you like a really good reason at why this person turned evil. I was like, dang, like I was really shocked, and like, but then they showed, right, that like maybe they were just selfish and wanted to be a villain anyways, and made the wrong decisions. But I don't know. But like it was just like a couple of lines that changed the whole story and character around, and it like really made me think. I was like, dang, what if that happened to me? Like would I still be the person that I am? Or would I choose a different way? So I think that is a really cool concept. So I totally agree with that. It's always hard, I think, like to just to have. I was struggling with a villain myself in one of my dark fantasy novels, and I'm like, is this person really just a jerk? Like, or you know what I mean? I'm like, it just was falling flat for me. So I was talking to a buddy a while back, and he's like, I think you just need something different, like whether or not he's like trying to fulfill his father's dying wish, right, of conquering this kingdom or whatever, like he's like, you just need something, and I totally agree. So I think a lot of times, different villains can fall flat. I think that's why Thanos didn't, personally, because you're like, man, he's kind of right. Like some people suck, right? Like, and like, what should you do? So I think that really made a lot of people think, and I think that some people were uncomfortable with that, but that just showed the writing was really good. So I think that makes sense. It's a good example. All right. So, what has your most challenging obstacle to complete the first three books been, and how did you overcome them?
First, it was working with my brother was good and challenging. Again, like we're both trying to go in different directions, trying to incorporate his ideas while doing my own, and feeling like it's not really my story. That's a challenge because again, like he did have good ideas, and again, a lot of them survived in the story. So it's kind of challenging when you want to go in one direction, and it's like, okay, I think these are good ideas, but it doesn't really fit with the direction I keep drifting towards. So that was a big challenge. And then combining that with the book that I had written in high school and trying to get all of those themes to work, like it was such a huge mess. I remember when I first sent it out to agents and publishers, and like they were interested in the concept, but then when I would send it over, nobody really wanted to go past that. And so I would ask for feedback, and one of the people responded and was like, "This is a mess of sci-fi soup," or something. I can't remember what she had said, but I was like, "Oh yeah, it is kind of messy and soupy, I guess." I don't know. It seemed to work. So that was a challenge. But the problem was like I didn't know how to fix it, and so that was when I finally was like, I need an editor to actually go through this and point out all the problems with it, because I had to rearrange. Basically, the editor went through it and was like, "You're doing things out of order." Like I had some big reveals very early on, and I did that because I wanted to like hook people.
Yeah.
And again, with a fan, like it works in a thriller, and again, that's what I was used to. So I thought that's what I'm gonna do. But it just I hadn't built up enough to those points. I had like some pretty significant reveals within the first like 5 or 7 chapters that she's like, you have to put this way later in the book. So that was a huge challenge, was rearranging the book, making the story still make sense, and just all the rewrites I had to do to get to that point was a huge challenge. But I couldn't have done it without actually getting a professional editor. Like I would not have been able to understand. I was just too far into it at that point to like
Yeah.
really pull myself out and be like,
Yep.
because I could read something and say, why are they doing this? Why do they have these things happening in these orders that they do? And I could tell you why I'm not getting drawn into it. I could tell you why I don't like it, and I think you would agree with a lot of it. But for whatever reason, when I wrote it and I had done it so many times, I don't know. I think maybe my brain was fried at that point.
Yeah, yeah, it's like hard to see the forest through the trees, right? And you're like, I always think of like a big like tangle of like cord or something, right? Or string, and you're like trying to unravel here, but then you're like, maybe I should go over here. You're like trying to almost, I don't know. I was like trying to fix too many things at once. Um, that's where like now like I'm so glad I got a developmental editor, and then I had Logan D. Irons, H.L. Tinsley were like my alpha readers, and all three of them really said the same thing, which was nice, but like I was to a point where I was like, I just need somebody else to read this besides my friends, like so it was nice. Like I was able to find those two, and then yeah, like Sarah Jordan helped me out, and she's just like absolutely amazing. So she's like, "Yep, you hear?" Like I'm like still reading through the notes. It's like a master class at freaking writing well. Which I'm like really she's like told me that she's like I'm really excited to see what you come up with. I was like I have been working hard. Like, so I totally get it. Yeah, at times it's just like it's just I had to step back. I was like on my fourth draft. She's like I think it's gonna need two more. So I'm on my fifth draft now. So which is like it's whatever it is what it is. But yeah, sometimes I agree with you. I think you just need somebody who knows what they're doing to help you pick up the mess. So I totally get that. Definitely feel you there. um, yeah, it's funny, right? Like anytime an obstacle comes up and you're like right now I'm at that point where I'm so burnt out with my life and my job, I like not really getting anything done. But part of me is like, I think that's okay to rest a little bit, to then, like kind of come back. And I've been like, never been at a point like this where I've had to, and I know people I've talked to about this, so I just wanted to mention it for guests, but like, and viewers, but like I'm at a point now where it's like I've never been at this high a level before of almost getting stuff out there, so it's almost like I have trouble figuring out where to go now. So I'm just trying to like finish up like my notes and what they said, and then give it to like essentially make it nice and then give it to betas, but get like the real feedback and then just be ready for like more changes. But I think it's like okay to come up against a new obstacle, right? Like there's always going to be like a new one, which I think makes total sense. Um, what did you focus on the most though when it came to like world building, like within this science fiction fantasy genre?
I I focus probably the most on like the rules, which I know isn't exciting to say or talk through, but again, I wanted to be able to tie these things back to something logical as
Yeah,
much as I could, so people could do elemental magic. How do you make that logical? Like in a world where you can actually do that, how do you make that make sense? And so for me, I wanted to like it's a challenge, but that's what I wanted to do. And the deeper into the series you get, the more complicated it gets.
for sure.
Um, and it's funny, some people I've gotten feedback where they're like, the system was overly complicated. Some were like, yeah, it's kind of run of the mill. So I've gotten feedback on both sides of it. I do think it's. I mean, I haven't read as much fantasy as someone like you, and probably a lot of people who are reading this. So maybe people have read a book where it is explained in this way. I haven't read one, so I don't want to say, go out here and say it's like the first time anyone's done it this way, because it's very possible that someone else has, but that's what I focused on. I wanted it to always. I never wanted readers to get to a point where like that doesn't make sense. Like he said this earlier,
Yeah, yeah,
and again, I know that's not like the most exciting thing when it comes to world building, but for me, that's where I run into a lot of issues with fantasy, and where I'm like I kind of get out of it. Where I know if I feel like I can tell that the author backed themselves into a corner and didn't feel like thinking their way out of it, I can't. I'm out, and so I tried to never do that.
I feel like that's fair. I don't remember. I think it was like probably 4 years ago. I remember there was a book that pulled me out. I guarantee it's behind me somewhere. like the author just did so. Oh, you know what? I do remember. So I have four authors that like really inspired me from Forgotten Realms to write, and I can say this because there's like 500 authors or books or whatever. But like one of my favorite authors, I was like, oh, I read an older book of theirs. Must have been when they were like like kind of starting out or whatever. And the whole book was phenomenal. We get to the end, and it was almost like they didn't know how to end the book. And like a character just gets killed, and then all of a sudden, one of them. I'm trying to figure out how to say it without people knowing. Um, Something happens to the main character that essentially resets the whole thing, except his like best friend's dead now. And it's just like wild, and I'm like, why did I just read this book? Like, and it's weird for that author because all the other stuff I read from them, whether it's a different like Pathfinder, Dragonlance, like like their own stuff, indie, whatever, has been phenomenal. It was just like, but maybe it was just that one book, I don't know, but it has to this day been one of the reasons why I want to write. And then I had another one where it's like somebody bought the rights to the game, and then this person was supposed to get like they wrote a trilogy. It was phenomenal. Well, I get to the end, and the epilogue is essentially like the main character gets overtaken by a cursed item, and then I'm like, why would you end that way? And there's no other books. It turns out, trivia, right? They were supposed to get another trilogy where you find out, and like basically they get saved by the crew or whatever, the D&D crew. I was so disappointed. So those are two things where I get it drives me nuts. And I loved both authors. I loved the characters. I really enjoyed the books for the most part. I just didn't like the ending. And I never want to do that to somebody, if that makes sense. Like whatever the ending is, I want you to be like, oh, okay. Like maybe you're not happy, but you're like, oh, that was good. So I get it. Some of those quirks are just like it just drives you absolutely wild. So yeah, I
Yeah,
totally
and
understand.
that's what, like a huge issue I had with the Hunger Games because like I loved the first book. The second one was not as good, and then the third one I struggled to get through. But by the time I got to the end, I was like, wasn't the whole point of this to save her sister? And then like she just dies, and I that for me was because I don't mind, and this is the hardest criticism for me when people go through the training grounds, and this is without getting any spoilers away. There are characters that die a lot of characters that die, I should say. They don't die a lot. They die once, but there are a lot of characters that die, and some people have told me like, oh, it just felt like you wanted shock value. I'm like, absolutely not. That's the last thing I would ever want. And to me, that's kind of my problem with the Hunger Games is I don't know if she was going for shock value. I don't know what she was going for really, and that's the issue. I don't really know what she was going for
Yeah,
in
yeah,
killing
yeah,
her,
yeah.
other
That's
than like, oh, it's realism or whatever. I don't know. Uh, that I don't ever want to do either. Like, I want there to be a very clear purpose for why the character dies. And it's fine sometimes, random things happen, but like for a major character, I think that you owe it to the audience to be like, there should be some kind of it shouldn't be like a constant jarring thing where a
yeah,
major
yeah,
character is taken out of the book. But B, it should also serve some kind of purpose, in my opinion.
yeah, totally.
Whether there's a message behind it or it motivates the other characters, whatever it is. Like, and this might be a corny reference, but like Charlotte's Web, when Charlotte dies, the spider, and she it helps Wilbur in whatever way. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
are there's a lot of deaths in books and in media that serve a greater purpose. Again, Hunger Games is just not one of them for me. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's the hardest criticism for me is if people ever say, I feel like you didn't do this character justice in their death. Because I don't mind if it's abrupt and jarring in that way, but I would want there to be some reflection on like what's the aftermath of this and how does
yeah.
it serve the characters. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's I don't even remember the original question I was going off of here,
That's
but
fine because I totally agree. I'm not gonna say it on here because it's whatever. But like there was some that happened to me with some media recently. It was actually a TV show I was watching, and a character just randomly gets hit by an arrow, and I was like, oh, but they'll make it, and they're dead, and I'm like, what just happened? I'm like this made no sense, and it was for no reason. I'm gonna say it. It was the Wheel of Time Prime show, and I'm like, what? Like, I'm not gonna say who, but I was like, why would you do that? The person's in the entire series, and it just for some reason they're just dead. And I'm like, it was one of my favorite like secondary characters, and I'm like, I've talked to so many people. They're like, did you see this? I'm like, yes, I did. Like, and like I kept watching the show. I enjoyed other stuff. I pretended it wasn't Wheel of Time personally, but it like really ticked me off. I was like, why? Like, and to me that just says they didn't know the source material enough and how much that character meant to people. But that really ticked me off, and it really told me never do that. And there was no reason for it. Like he didn't save anybody. There was nothing. He's just gone for like no reason, which is it's just a waste of a character in writing. I don't know. I just felt it was like sloppy at that point, but I totally
yeah,
agree.
I'll bring up a controversial one. I don't know if we want to keep talking about this, but
Oh,
uh, my probably it might be my all-time favorite video game of all time is The Last of Us, Have you
Okay,
seen the
I
show
haven't
at
played that
all?
yet. No, I haven't played it or watched it yet.
Okay, well, maybe it's not worth talking about then. There's a very controversial death in that in the second game, and
I have
anyway, if
heard
you haven't,
that.
oh, you know about it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, yeah, that one is kind of tough because on the one hand, it does do a little bit of what I said, where it basically sets off the story for the second game, or second season if you're watching the show. But at the same time, it just it was something that came out of nowhere, and the motivation behind it is kind of you could tell it's like retroconned in, and never the groundwork was never really laid for it, and so you could tell that it was just something that was added later. So for me, those are that I had a lot of issues with that. That to me felt like a lot of sloppy writing, but on the other hand, at least it served a purpose to propel the story.
Yeah. I feel like Han Solo in The Force Awakens, like he had such a big impact, and then his son kills him, and I'm like, I don't know. I felt like they would have done better if they had. It just fell flat to me, and then like same thing with Luke in the second one, like, and at first I was like, oh, I really like this, and I started thinking about it as I was driving home, and the writer in me was like, that was not good, dude. Like the whole point was like it was coming up, and then he just got. I was just it. I don't know. There was so many things where, and then like Finn just like running around for no reason. I don't know. There was just like, and then even like Phantasm or whatever, just like randomly gets killed. Like it's like you built up this whole villain, and then you're just gonna dump her. It's like I don't know. There was so many times like that. It was just like it was just not. And there's a lot of things I did like about like each movie and stuff, but yeah, there's things like that where it really drove me nuts. I just felt like it was like really waste of character arcs and bringing certain people back. I was like, why would we just do Yuzum Bong or I don't know something new or Old Republic or something? I don't know. It just felt like a kind of a waste of my time at times. And I think that's why a lot of people have issues with it because, like, as a writer, I'm like, yeah, I would never would have done that. Like I would have done something else or done it for a reason. So I totally agree. I think you do it for a reason, it makes sense. But just to do something for shock value to me is like really hollow, and I think a lot of people feel that. So I think that makes total sense.
Yeah, I'm not even a huge Star Wars guy. I struggle with it. Like I like it and I don't at the same time, for a lot of reasons. But I I feel like a lot of I didn't watch the first series until I was like 18, so I kind of got into that pretty late, and by that point it was already really old. So I didn't have any kind of like love for it. But I still do appreciate it. I like it a lot, in some of the movies. But yeah, even I was like, I can't wait to see Luke Skywalker and how powerful. Like this is the peak of his power, kind of, right? Or at least
Yep,
I thought it
supposed
was
to be.
supposed to be. And then yeah, then he shows up, and the explanation I heard is like, well, to do that trick where he's actually, what's it called, like displaying, what I don't know what the term would be, but putting his image out there when he's not actually there, like would take a lot of force out of him. I'm like, okay, I guess, but I mean, at the end of the day, I want to see the guy hacking everyone up, right? Like I want to see him flipping around like Yoda.
Yeah, and he like literally in the books, which are so much better than in the comics. The books in the comics, like he literally like eats a sun with his force powers. So I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
at least
I'm
he's
like,
yeah.
really? But yeah, like knowing
Yeah,
stuff
at least
like
he's
that,
got
I'm
evil
just like,
system.
yeah, yeah. That's why Disney's like, none of that's canon anymore. I'm like, because it was better than what you are putting out for the most part. Like Mandalorian is great, but I'm just like, it was just wild. But that brings me to a question. I've been saving these interesting questions that people have been giving me for like kind of like our last main question before heading out, and I've gotten so many great answers. Like got like four or five of them. I just keep kind of rearranging them, and it's been great. If you could visit one world, realm, kingdom, whatever setting for an adventure, which one would it be and why?
This isn't fantasy.
That's fine. It could be anything.
Okay, it's my favorite movie of all time. It's The Matrix.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. That's a good one, man.
Yeah, and I would love to get in there and wreak some havoc. I don't know, maybe I'd be a punk and not really do much, but I like to think of myself as like a Neo character if I were to go in there. I'd probably be the guy, I can't remember his name, but I'd be the one eating steak, probably like take my memories away.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just
I would
I
totally
love
do it.
steak.
Yeah,
But
I'd be good at sushi, but
yeah, yeah, that's where if I were to pick like a fantasy one, have you ever heard of Off to be the Wizard?
no.
You would like it, I think. It's so the I'll tell you the basic premise because it comes up very early on. The main character, I read it a long time ago. I can't even remember it now. But he I can't remember his name, I should say. He comes across like a computer program, and it's it's basically life, and he goes through it and he finds his name in there, and then he realizes that whatever he changes in that program changes, like he could change his height, he could change whatever he wants, and then he starts doing some crazy stuff and police come after him, so he teleports himself back in time into like a certain period of time, and there's other people there who know about the program as well. And so it's all about, they're wizards but they're using this computer, they know about this computer
Cool.
program to like do their magic.
Yeah.
uh I stopped, like there's like, I don't even know how many. I got like 4 books deep and I was like, okay, this
Wow.
has run its course for me. But
Yeah.
it is really good. So that's another one where I think it would be, I mean, I would love to have a program where I could just change whatever I want anytime. They make themselves immortal, and I don't know if I'd want that necessarily, but
Yeah.
yeah, I probably play pranks on people all day. Eventually get bored of
Yeah.
it, but that's one I would like to visit.
Oh, that's awesome. I was always thinking like the movie Jumper, like I don't know,
Oh, I
I
love
was
that.
like I always thought that would be like really cool. I got the book. My best friend was like, "That's a better, way better book." So I got it this summer, so I can't wait to put that on my list. But yeah, that's Matrix is a good one too. I like both of those. Those are good. That's why my friend he's like keep asking these questions. Like you're getting some good answers. I was like, yeah, not you're like running the mill and everybody's like really been thinking about it. So I really like that. That's really cool. And now I got a couple new books to check out. So that's really awesome. All right. Well, do you have any news, updates, current projects, anything like that that you can share with us?
Other than the book 2063 being out, it's only been out for a little bit. I think a month or two, so still pretty fresh.
I'll forgive Goodreads then a little bit. Like
What'd you say?
I'll forgive Goodreads a little bit then.
Yeah, yeah. Don't be too hard on Goodreads. Plus, I always, because my name's so generic, I Goodreads will always put it to some other Jason Clark.
Yep, yep.
I was told to use a pen name. Maybe I will eventually. I don't know. I don't know if I care enough to bother with it, but the other one I have is the one I mentioned, that battle royale book. It's called the Olympic, or it's called Olympic Royale. That should be coming out in, again, probably like a month or two, depending. I'm actually, I have everything done with it. I'm just waiting for the cover art. So hopefully that's soon.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like any of that, just like send to me. I'd love to, like once you, do your, cover reveal or something like that, like just send me whatever and I'll get it up wherever. I got like my website and stuff like that that I've been putting stuff up for on like the blog and stuff. And I keep trying to do my newsletter, but I just get so swamped. But I just keep throwing stuff on all the rest of my social media. But yeah, anything you need, just let me know. It's been awesome, Jason. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot, got some really good books to check out on top of 2063. I'm like, that was like a really good surprise. I can't wait to check that out. It's like right up my alley. But yeah, if there's anything else we can do for you, in the meantime, just let me know and, we'll get it out there and help you out as best we can. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on today and just chatting with us and, letting us kind of pick your writer brain and, get some good book recs, out of the whole thing and some game ones too, which is really cool. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I love it. I'll have to do this kind of thing more often, and
Yeah.
happy to come back anytime. But yeah,
I,
good
I
luck
do
with
give
yours as well.
alumni. I give alumni first dibs. So I had some people
Nice.
say some stuff. I was like, people come on and help me out and do whatever. And I was like, I just give you guys first dibs for slots and things like that and dates and stuff. So yeah, like let me know. And I got season 5 coming up. So if you wanted to, do something really quick, like when you are ready, for next book, like just let me know. We can do another one this summer and get it out pretty quick. I think I might only have 2 episodes scheduled so far for season 5, but it'll be like probably like I think the first or second week in October at this point. But yeah, we can get you on again and pump another one out real quick. So
Nice. Okay, yeah, happy to do it. And yeah, good luck with your novellas. I'll
I
let me know when
appreciate it.
those are out. I want to read them.
Oh yeah. I'll for sure let you know. Oh, I just want to remind our audience that you can find Jason's book and social links in case you weren't with us earlier. You can find them in the description below anywhere we are watching or listening to this podcast. So please make sure you check out his books. Click on those. Awesome website, by the way. So please do that. And then we're really trying again just to make sure we're reviewing all products, whether they're book, whatever. We have people that are coming on for music soon, which is really cool. TV shows, comics, games, like whatever it is, it just helps everybody out in the long run. So keep doing that. Everybody's been great with that. Jason, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. But other than that, I hope you have a great rest of the night. Good luck with next book and everything. But yeah, let me know and we'll chat and get something going for you. So, all
All right. Yeah. Thanks again for having me.
right, cool. Thank you so much. See you later.
All right. See ya.